न तेरा खुदा कोई और है, न मेरा खुदा कोई और है, न तेरा खुदा कोई और है, न मेरा खुदा कोई और है। ये जो रास्ते हैं जुदा जुदा, ये मामला कोई और है।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام خاتم النبيين وبعد. I greet you all with the universal greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum. The greetings that was used by all of the prophets from the time of Abraham and Noah and Abraham and Moses and Jesus and the last prophet Muhammad and all the prophets in between, may peace and blessings be upon them all. They used to say, Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings of God Almighty be on all. Jesus, peace be upon him, used to greet his followers, Shalom alaikum, because they were taking the Hebrew dialect at that time, and in Arabic it's Assalamu alaikum. Well, welcome to a very special edition of Building Bridges. You can see guests in the studio. We'll be having a real interactive live discussion for the last Building Bridges for the blessed month of Ramadan. We thank all the viewers out there for the beautiful interaction you've been giving us over the month of Ramadan with the beautiful questions you've been phoning in and what have you. But today we are actually going to have a special edition where we're going to be having a discussion. We have special guests in the studio, and in the last segment we will allow you, the viewer, to interact with us. But for now, you know, I think let us remind all our viewers again what Building Bridges is all about. This is building bridges of understanding between all the faiths. Remember, we are here to understand one another. We are here to say that we are all one humanity. Remember our signature tune, your God is not another God and my God is not another God. We all have the same God, so we are all the children of humanity. You know the banners we have, we used to say we are one humanity. So that is what we are here, and we come to know and learn from one another, respect one another, and more importantly today, we want to know how we can work with one another and network with one another for the upliftment of humanity. And this is what Islam is all about. So let's start with our guest. I think let's go straight into it because time just flies away. We want to firstly introduce our Archbishop here. Our Archbishop Mbulelo Mvubu is a very senior figure in his church. And we are so pleased with the help of Dr. Adam, who will introduce later on, who is the chairman of ITV. But we would like you, Dr. Ajib, firstly, we thank you and welcome you on this very program of an open program, a Building Bridges program. But we would like you to introduce yourself to our viewers and to us. Tell us about yourself, and don't miss out any details. Tell us about you and your church, Archbishop.
Shalom. Thank you for having me here. My name is Mbulelo Michael Mvubu. I was born and bred in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. It was at that time known as Transkei. I'm the Archbishop or the leader of the Assemblies of Christ Church in Southern Africa. And I am also representing the organization called Council of Churches South Africa International, COCSI. After a number of years serving under the South African Council of Churches, that was from 1996 to 2011. In 2001, I moved to the Free State Province. And in 2004, I was elected chairperson of the South African Council of Churches, Free State Province, until 2011. Now, we birthed this new organization in January 2009 called COCSI, or full name, Council of Churches South Africa International. This organization is a fellowship or grouping of churches your NGOs, non-governmental organizations or community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, your FPOs, institutions, business, that's business fraternity, and as well as organizations and individuals.
Okay.
Now, we have a membership of 4.5 plus million members at COCSI, at Council of Churches South Africa International, with an affiliation of about 30,000 churches and organizations and faiths. In fact, we are a fast-growing Christian organization in South Africa.
Is this only in South Africa or SADC, this membership?
It's in SADC, yes, South Africa and other African countries. Yes, okay. That's correct. And well, our main objectives, primary objectives of the Council of Churches South Africa International are: one, to create jobs and to eradicate, not alleviate, but eradicate poverty. The secondary objective being to encourage and promote churches, unity among churches, so that we could work together. And just as we are now forming these bridges between the Christians and the Islam as well. There's no reason why we should not work together. We've been working together as brothers and sisters for quite a number of years. Now, I think it is important and imperative that we revive again those relationships for the good of everyone. You see, we really have a passion to serve. And for a number of years now, our peoples, they've been living in poverty and other forms of suppression, from apartheid, you name it. And I think something has got to be done. Well, let me also share this briefly with you, and but in particular you, our viewers. We think the political system is crumbling now. It's falling into pieces. They have tried their level best, but I don't think they have been able to gain much ground. I think the reason for that failure, if I may put it that way, was because of sidelining the church. You know, the church is the most important tool in every society that wants to achieve goals.
Well, I think you keep that point, Archbishop. I can see you got a lot to offer there. Let's go to our next guest there. We have His Excellency Zwelakhe Mthembu, and he's coming all the way from my hometown, Newcastle, where I grew up in the 50s, schooled there. So it's so nice to meet you, Excellency. And I think it will be also very good. Firstly, we thank you for coming on this Building Bridges program. And for the benefit of us here at ITV and the viewers, let us into your life and into your position as the King Zwelakhe Mthembu, and tell us who you are. And we are so glad to have you.
Thanks a lot for having me in your studio, and also grateful to be here to your viewers across the whole continent of Africa. As said, my name is Zwelakhe Mthembu, but my office, which I've been appointed into, is that of kingship, as a recipient of a mandate to restore the Mthethwa kingdom in the house of King Tingswayo. King Tingswayo is the founder of the Zulu nation, which we now have today. In 2016, the Zulu kingdom was completing 200 years of existence since King Tingswayo established and installed King Shaka in 1816. And then King Tingswayo was a leader of the paramount kingdom of the Mthethwas before Shaka was actually installed to continue with the mandate of mobilizing and building the Zulu nation. So I'm coming from that house, and then my journey has that of being, I'm a public management graduate in 1998 from Cape Peninsula University of Technology, but I also then established the redevelopment of Marabastad, which has a lot of Muslim community. My aim there was to restore Marabastad back into its position as a city where Chief Jeremiah Maraba, who was the head of the tribe, where now we call the city of Tshwane. I came in 1999, and during that process I then also was taken as a youth ambassador to Belgium through the National Youth Commission in the President's office. So I've been a youth ambassador in that twinning cooperation between South Africa and Belgium. And I went on further to become a youth representative under UNESCO. UNESCO is United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. In 2005 in Sweden, and then in France during the General Assembly of 193 member states at that time. I came back then into the country 2007 or 6 to be exact. We then formed also what was called Youth in Energy and Mining, which is a body to allow young people to participate in the mining and energy space. We went on also in 2004. Before that, 2006, we established what was called South African Small Scale Mining Chamber, which I'm a founder member of. And those structures then actually built me up to the point, after 10 years of activism, then I returned back home in Newcastle. As I returned, I was then prophesied by a prophet, Enoch Masimola, from Word of Prophecy Ministries in Newcastle. When he saw me first time stepping into his church, he said, "This is the person whom God said he has been waiting for. And God is saying through you, he's going to restore an old kingdom in KwaZulu." And then my antennas went up, because I knew that the Mthethwas were one of the old kingdom. And after that, actually prophesied that a mantle is going to be restored. And exactly a king from Amahlubi tribe, King Bungane, had a premonition that when I stepped into his homestead of one of his headmen in Utrecht, and then he asked, he was in Mpumalanga, but he could pick up spiritually that somebody has stepped into one of his headmen yard. And then he said, "Who are you with there?" asking his headman. And eventually the headman said, "No, I'm with them Mthethwa siblings." Then he said, "There is a young one, dark pigmentation, small frame, body. That person, the spirit is saying, the mantle that fell of King Tingswaya must be given to that young man and restore them to the kingdom." And that coincided with the word of a prophet who had already by then anointed me in front of the congregants to say, God is saying through you is going to restore. So the purpose of this is twofold. One, it is traditional heritage of restoring our house, King Tingswaya, but also it is a spiritual office where God, through this kingdom, is also going to restore his order amongst the kings, because the institution of kingdom has been established by God. And God is saying, kings, for their well-being and welfare, since they've been established by God, they must return to God.
Well, I think we are learning now on Building Bridges not only about Christianity and not only about the kingdoms in Saudi Arabia, but African kingdoms. Before we go for the break, quickly, thank you for that introduction. Dr. Adam, I think he's a very humble man. He's the man behind the stage. They say the people behind the stage are the real guys, but they don't like to come in the front. Dr. Adam, actually, he is the chairman, the man behind ITV. Assalamu alaikum again, and for the benefit of the viewers, a brief.
Wa alaikum salam. As you know, I don't think I've ever been really on ITV. I try to avoid being in the studio because it's, as you said, let the public hear from the presenters independent viewpoints about what Islam stands for. Islam is a natural progression of the message we receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I was very impressed, and my reason for wanting to collaborate very closely with Archbishop Mbulelo was perhaps maybe a selfish motive. It was selfish on the following basis that my son had met him, I think about a month ago, and my son told him that we as Muslims recognize Isa alayhi salam, or Jesus as you call him, as a messenger of God, and as that is part of our article of faith, that we cannot be Muslims unless we do so. We recognize all the messengers of God. We don't regard him as a deity. Archbishop said something which touched my heart. He said, we recognize Allah or God, it's the same thing, yes, but we recognize also Muhammad as a messenger of God, as a final messenger, and that the testaments of Christianity have foretold the coming of a further messenger. So I think we need to focus maybe after the break regarding the religious natural progression of the messages that came down from God. It's virtually the same message. And essentially what our goal is as Muslims and Christians in Africa, I'm not talking only about South Africa, is that we want to find common ground where we can work together. And the common principles of Muslims and Christians working together is we all believe in one God. We all believe that the God is a good God and a merciful God, and is a compassionate God, and that there is divine justice. We all believe that God never wanted any one group to oppress another group, and that all men are equal. So now the issue of all men being equal, how can we allow a situation, and even we as Muslims as well, we must ask ourselves that, and Christians must ask themselves that, and we collectively, Muslims and Christians, represent over 90% of Africa. Why is it that the Muslims and Christians collectively, who are people of the book, are allowing oppression of their own peoples? Why is Muslims in India the second-class citizens of India? Why is there racism in India which is so high? Why are we allowing that? Why are we allowing the oppression of the people of Palestine, Kashmir, just general oppression? Why are we allowing 30 million people who are black people to be oppressed? Muslims have a lot of resources and wealth. It's fine for us to give charity, but we need to give money and contribute funds for the removal of the oppression. Giving charity is just a band-aid. It's fine. Muslims give a lot of charity, 60 million rand last year in Ramadan only. In a 3 or 4 hour program, Archbishop, Muslims contribute between 3 to 5 to 10 million rand for charitable purposes. Will they contribute 3 to 5 to 10 million rand for the eradication of poverty, what Archbishop is talking about? We're not talking about band-aids that you're just feeding a person, drip feeding, and he stays in poverty. That is not a removal of oppression. Removal of oppression is to change the system so that there is no further division, and there is no further inequality left behind. We need a totally, but I'll talk a bit more after the break when you need me to talk on that.
Well, there we have it. You can see, we have now first round, and it's at least you, the viewers, as well know who we have in the studio and where they're coming from. And I just want to, while we're just going to go for a break just now, just to summarize and bring it back into focus now, what we, in terms of building bridges and building bridges of understanding. The thing that binds us as Christians and as Muslims and as Africa, even as people of Africa, is the fact that religiously, from a theological perspective, we trace our roots to Prophet Abraham. The Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, he's the father of the Muslims, Jews, and Christians. He's the father of those many nations. And he couldn't get children from his first wife, Sarah, peace be upon her. So he married, Sarah made him, in the Genesis, Sarah told him to marry Hagar, who was from Africa. Hagar, Genesis chapter 16, verse 3. Hagar, she told him to marry Hagar, who was from Egypt, and he got his firstborn son, Ishmael, peace be upon him. So from Ishmael came Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and God blessed Sarah 14 years later with the son Isaac, peace be upon him. And from Isaac came the Israelite prophets, and from Muhammad came the Arabs, and he's the final messenger. That's the one. So it binds us as religiously, and it binds us even in the continent of Africa. Number two, I just want to show you the close relationship. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the early days, Well, I want to show you about the oppression that was there in his time. He was fighting the same oppression and caste barriers. He was fighting all this racism and all these problems in his town, in his city in Mecca, but he was getting opposition. As normal, when you fight the vested interests, they want you out. So he told his companions under divine guidance to go to Africa. Remember, we are in Mecca. There's an African king, the Negus. He's an African king, he's a Christian king, but he's a good king. And he will give you all homage. And he could have told them to go to Europe, which is not far across, to go across into Greece or Europe. He told them, I'm commanded to go to Africa. And the king Negus welcomed them, which is today's Ethiopia. And he welcomed them and he gave them comfort. This shows the Prophet, peace be upon him, was cementing strong ties between Africa and Islam and Muslims again. So I thought I just want for us to understand historically, this is not the first time. It's not just we're doing this thing now. This is part and parcel historically. The Prophet, peace be upon him, his lineage is traced from his mother's side, great-grandmother's side, to Africa. Hajara alayhi salam, Hagar, peace be upon her, from Africa. So you can see that is how God told Archbishop in the Bible to Abraham that you'll be a father of many nations. You see, you'll be a father of many nations. And we go, if you look at the screen here, Archbishop, when leaving the Abrahamic branch, you look at Adam and Eve. Islam believes all of humanity came from Adam and Eve, one family. So the nations and the tribes in Africa, in Asia, all over the world, we are all one family. Because Islam believes we all have one parent. We are all from one tree. This is the tree of humanity. The Abrahamic branch is just one branch. But the nations and the tribes, King, Your Excellency, you were telling us about the tribes here in Africa. They were all, you are absolutely right. If we go to our screen, just before we go on a break, let's go on one. I want to give you, just before we end, on a verse of the Quran there. If you look at that verse of the Quran, chapter 42, verse 13, it says that this is the same religion. Islam is the same religion that he established and that he has enjoined on you as it was on Noah, and which was sent by inspiration to you, the Prophet Muhammad, and which was sent to Abraham, and to Moses, and to Jesus. Namely, that you should remain steadfast in religion. This is the Quran. The Prophet told us that this religion is not a new religion. Islam is not coming with a new religion. It is the same religion from the time of beginning of creation. So I think now that we show this commonly, we are not staging. We are, as Muslims, we are not saying, oh, we want to feel good and to be nice. It's part and parcel of our faith and our belief that we are one humanity. I think let's all, having said this, stay tuned. Let's go and pay some bills, and we'll be back. Dr. Adam needs to get that done, and we'll be back after the break.
ये मामला कोई और है, मामला कोई और है.
Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to a very special last edition, Ramadan edition of Building Bridges, and I'm sure you, as the viewers, we'll give you opportunity later on. Let's see if we have time to open up the lines, but we're just warming up here now, trying to get to know it. And Archbishop, we want a comment from you. We've been discussing about the historical relationships between Islam and Christianity. I want to mention two more points, and then I want your input in this. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he made a special treaty with the bishops of Najran. They came at that time, the bishops. In his time, we're talking about in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And he guaranteed them, because now Islam was a big empire, but he granted them freedom of their religion. And he granted them freedom of safety. And he says no bishop must be removed from his bishophood, and no monk must be removed from his monk. He gave them those, he granted them religious freedom. And this is documented. It's called the agreement with the bishops of Najran. Number two, you'll find that the Prophet, when he went to Medina after the persecution, and God was helping because he was a prophet of God, and God aided him. And now when Muslims came to Medina, they accepted him as the leader, even though we're Jews and Christians and everyone. He formed what we call in Islam the Sha'ifat al-Medina. It's called the Dustur al-Medina. It is documented the first constitution the world ever knew This all democracy and all is only coming now. Where was democracy when Africa was running with the kings, with a beautiful system? It's not just democracy that has got a system. That system of humanity and prosperity was long in Africa, even before colonialism came here. Yes. So the Prophet ﷺ set up in Medina. He got the Christians, Jews together, and he said, we are common citizens of Medina. Let's work together for the upliftment of the city of Medina as common citizens. Now we want to know what we can do here, Archbishop. What can we do to work together in South Africa and in Africa, in the SADC? Some of your suggestions, you are in the field, we are in the field, maybe some suggestions from you.
Yeah, thank you for asking the question. It's very important. You know, in my 43 years as a pastor, and I realized that we cannot do the work alone. We have to have partners. We have to join hands. We have to work together. You know, working together, we can do more. We need to develop our people. Development does not necessarily mean building infrastructures, but you must first develop the mind of our people. You know, you see, our people are entirely dependent on handouts, and the social grants, of course. Well, we don't say they should not receive those benefits, but they must not depend on them. Now, if we change now the mindset so that they can help themselves, we will, in other words, be teaching them how to fish rather than giving them fish.
So education.
Education, you name it. Skills training, a lot, and agriculture as well, of course. In fact, in the Eastern Cape context, we are busy piloting now with the assistance of Dr. Adam, of course, a one home, one garden, one church, one garden, one school, one garden, one community, one garden, one health center, one garden, one correctional center, one garden, one South African police services, one garden, as a short-term solution to hunger and poverty while we are looking at the bigger picture, that of training our people in various life skills so that they can help themselves.
So I think you are emphasizing education. I think, and I agree with you. I agree. Education in terms not only intellectually, but skills development, and also what do you say, to develop the moral self, strengthen the individual's character and morality. Your Excellency, from your point perspective, do you think, how do you see Africa and South Africa as far as the African communities are concerned, the tribal areas are concerned? Are they open to working with other groups? How is their attitude to to other people, and in terms of progress and development, networking, what the Bishop is saying?
Thanks to have me again here. It's my passionate subject, this when we're talking, because my background is governance and politics, economics, public law, finance, local government. This is their history. When the Europeans sat down to do what is called the scramble of Africa, they were dividing Africa according to their colonial masters. It was the kings in Europe partnering with explorers to say how we can partition Africa according to Francophone, according to Anglophones, and Portuguese, and Spanish, and you name them. At the end of the day, they came to us, the kings, and they came with a paper and a pen to say, if you allow us to come into your land, they will put up a flag, which will then say this area is now partnered with Britain, or is partnered with Dutch, or is partnered with this country. But then they came up with paper to say, we have signed to say now this portion of land belongs to them, or better part of the portion of our land. As a result, there was no meaning to whatever that they were doing, but they were clear that they were now usurping the land from the kings. And in the modern day, we are seeing the similar tendencies where now the land is now being taken away from the kings again, but this time not directly by the colonial masters, but the very democratic system. Yes.
You are absolutely right. Land is very central because it's the natural resource.
Yes.
What I want to know, and that is a big issue which we have to address, and I agree with you.
Yes.
But I think what I want to know more is in terms of faith-based. Going into the rural areas, say if Muslims are going to go in and work with the Christian groups, how is that relation? Is there a goodwill? Because look, in the time of the Negus in Africa was very open to. The reason why Christianity is in Africa and Islam is that it was the nature of the African people of Ubuntu to welcome the foreigners.
Of course, definitely.
But how is it now? How you think we can use is that goodwill still there for us to go into the rural areas, partner with the tribal authorities, partner with the churches?
It's exactly the subject I'm addressing. What we are already doing with Dr. Adam as a response to the need of the kings. And him coming from a Muslim faith, a background, we have seen a need that we must defend the kings on their call of retaining the land under their kingdoms, 1. 2, the welfare of the people in the kingdoms is actually going to thrive through a partnership between these modern Christians, Muslim, because already we have our people who have embraced Muslim faith, others who have embraced Christian faith, others who have embraced Jewish faith. Sure. All these people are the subjects of the kings. And now it is the king who must create an enabling environment for all these people to live together in harmony by ensuring that don't actually interfere in trying to convert this person to say you must cross over and now come and be this faith or that faith. Allow people to apply their mind to say
and choose their own faith.
And we embrace anyone who has come to our rescue. People are very easy. When people are in need, it comes second who helped them. If it's a Muslim who come with the help, people will even embrace your faith because it means your faith is considerate of our situation. But we don't want a situation of a faith that would bombard people in embracing a particular faith, and then you neglect the need of the people, or you subject people under oppression in the name of saying it's the faith. No, we that's not what the king should stand for. They must ensure that well-being, welfare, prosperity, peace, stability, no wars. That is the spirit we want to espouse. And if we can embrace those ideals, we will see a stable situation, which is already what we are doing as we are moving in different kingdoms to say, how can we be of help?
Well, Your Excellency, I want to just tell you before I go now to Dr. Adam. In Islam, there's a verse in the Quran about what you're saying. Who is the best? We all want to say who is the best amongst the Christian, the Jew, the African, the Indian, the Chinese. Who is the best? And of all the nations, it's a question always comes up. There's a verse in the Quran which says, "Kuntum khayra ummat." It's in Arabic. He says, who can claim to be the best of all the communities? You know what God says in the Quran? Kuntum khayra ukhrijat linnas. That community, that nation can only claim to say we're the best is that one who is uplifting humanity. Ukhrijat linnas. Not uplifting Muslim only, or not uplifting only their own tribe, but uplifting humanity. That person, that group can say, I am one of the best of humanity. So I think this is what we want to engage in, Dr. Adam. I think hearing what Archbishop is saying and what His Excellency the King is saying, as well, what can you tell us in terms of this partnership that you have in mind?
Okay. Before I go to the partnership, I'll tell you where there's partnerships or so-called partnerships which are based on hypocrisy and based on false understandings, and where there's a failure, and religion is used to do a lot of harm to people, and religion is used as a pretext for the oppressor to keep the oppressed in a state of oppression and to be comfortable with his oppression. And religion can be used just as a social responsibility, where you give a little bit of charity, but it don't change the condition of the people. So when religion is used, according to the verse of the Quran that is said, for the true spirit, and only God can discern, but we need objective, and we need to be very harshly critical to see, is that verse being complied with? Is religion being used to really uplift the community? I'm going to give you two examples. One critical of Muslims and one critical of Christians, because I have to do both so that we understand it. I'm going to start with the Christians. There's a typical saying that is said that the colonial Christians, and I'm using the word colonial Christians, you know what I mean?
Yes, not indigenous.
Came to Africa to colonize it, and they gave religion to pacify the oppressed. That is what it is. There's a saying that says that the colonial Christians, it's not all Christians, I'm using the word colonial Christians, came with the Bible, gave you their religion, and they used that missionary intention, and they gave you their mindset that you are the worker and they are the owners and they are the capitalists, and that there is no equality in that system. If you read Steve Biko, he says Christianity has been used to colonize Africa and for the oppressed to remain oppressed. And I think there's this decolonized version of Christianity that is gaining momentum in Africa, and which we want to support, to say that if you want to end oppression, the churches and the mosques must speak out about it. Now let me come to the Muslims. The Muslims during the time of apartheid were fighting against the apartheid government. But I'm sorry to say, our Muslim leaders, the various ulama bodies, are silent when there's oppression today. I haven't heard a single statement of condemnation in 24 years to the high levels of poverty. They have the ability to do so, but they are silent. So as far as I'm concerned, those bodies are part and parcel of the oppressors. They're condoning it. They must condemn it. They must say they are supporting the eradication of poverty. When they cannot do that and they are happy to just give a bit of charity, charity doesn't ease your conscience. I told something to King Zwelakhe and Archbishop as well. I say Islam is different. And why I believe Islam, it's the perfect version of the various messages that came that got tempered along. And Christianity is a lot of tempering, we know about it. Tempering for who? For the people who are the oppressors and the colonials. So Islam is the final perfect religion. What does Islam say about justice? It says you can do a lot of sins as a Muslim, sins of ibadah, and Allah in His discretion will decide if He wants to forgive you. He can forgive you even if your sins are to the mountains. But if I take 1 hectare of land from King Zwelakhe's people, there is no, Allah will not forgive me for that. But the Christian, and I would say the Christian colonial version of Christianity says, oh, Jesus Christ died for us and for your sins, don't worry, you are forgiven. What is that mindset? That is a corrupt mindset. It means that you can commit any amount of oppression. It means that the Broederbond have come and created apartheid and have colonialism in South Africa. And then they will go to the churches and say, Bishop, please put your holy water over me, and I'm now absolved. That version of Christianity is the colonial Christianity which keeps oppressed people oppressed. We must say, and we want to have a common set of principles, that if you've stolen somebody's land, no amount of washing somebody's feet, no amount of praying or whatever it is as well, whether as a Muslim or as a Christian, is going to absolve you from that. Well, the only thing is when you give the land back in totality with all the means of production and all the money that are siphoned and stolen out from that means of production to Europe and whatever, it has been estimated reparations over $700 trillion. Yes. One of the things that we want to do in this partnership is to have a reparations fund. We want to eradicate poverty. We want to have social upliftment, and we want to have a common set of principles, not only between Muslims and Christians, even Jews, Orthodox Jews who apply all religions. It's all religions.
All
I don't have a problem with any Jewish people, they're our cousins. That's fine. Palestinian issue, we'll address it. But those cousins, so-called cousins who are Jews, there's very few of the real Jews who have DNA that originates in Palestine.
Okay.
The Archbishop will confirm that as well. Majority of them have got nothing to do with the land of, and what is happening in Palestine. I know I said we won't talk about it, but there is a huge oppression. What is happening in South Africa is a similar form, but it's a more silent oppression.
Well, I want
we want to end all forms of oppression, and the first people you must criticize is yourself and your community. I'm criticizing my own community to say, stand up today and say, not in our name. You cannot go to sleep at bed as a Muslim, as a wealthy Muslim especially, and the people in Atteridgeville are starving when there's 14 million people hungry. In South Africa. There is a shame on us as Muslims, and it's a shame on the Christians who have colonized the land. And I have no respect for the Christians who have stolen the land. I have zero respect for them. And I have very little respect for the wealthy Muslims who are not willing to do something to eradicate poverty. Simple as that. I will say it straight on here. I don't have a problem with that.
You are saying what the Quran is saying. What Dr. Adam is saying, you must uplift humanity. And that's what Islam came to do. So Archbishop, what Dr. Adam is saying, how can, let's channel this now. How can we all agree now? We all agree that we need to, a religion, if it's not uplifting people, then it's not fulfilling its purpose. How would you say Christianity, Islam, this relationship, how can we carry it further? Let us see how we can carry. What will be the benefit? What are some of them? Y'all are doing it already. Y'all are doing some projects with Dr. Adam in the township. Let's get more people involved. What can you tell us more about how to build this momentum?
They say actions speak louder than words. As I have said, and I'm still repeating that statement again, we, in the Eastern Cape context, have already piloted a project which must be launched during the month of June 2018. That of uplifting communities. People are waiting on the ground. You know, we've been holding board meetings which really do not yield anything, you know, in terms of assisting the poor. And Jesus Christ, you know, he always identified and associated himself with the poor.
Sure.
Now, I fully agree with Dr. Adam, you know, when he says the rich Muslims, in fact, it's not only the rich Muslims these days, but even the Africans, our black Africans, they are very rich. We do have a number of billionaires and multimillionaires, but they don't care for anybody. You know, they are just caring for themselves and their families only. Well, good luck to them. But I'm sure we as the church, together with Islam, you know, if for instance, you know, when I visited during the month of February, Israel again for the second time, we are always reminded there that there are three dominating religions. That's Christianity, the Jews, and as well as the Islam, yes. So there is no reason why we can't join hands and work together for uplifting our communities. So using education as our tool number one. If we educate our people, then our people will be able to stand up on their own and and move away from dependency syndrome.
All right. So can we, while we are, you know, time is on us, can we say that having sacrificed all of you all to take your time to come onto this program, firstly, as a presenter, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank Dr. Adam, His Excellency, our King's Welake, Archbishop. We thank you also for Vubu for coming. Let us use these building bridges and take it to the grassroots. Let us,
absolutely.
Everyone that is there, let's not start just talking about it, but let's start walking that talk and implementing it. And I think that's what we want to achieve from all those viewers. Sorry we couldn't give you the lines today, but we will be back to our normal program after the Ramadan. But we're going to carry on with this theme of how, remember, we keep telling our viewers, call us in your area and we want to come into the communities and build bridges. So here's the challenge still there. We'll come back to you after the break, and after the Ramadan break, and after the Eid, we'll definitely see this program once again, and maybe all of you there, we will visit you in your different areas. I thank you all for coming. Archbishop, His Excellency, the King, and Dr. Adam, we hope that our viewers out there will take us up the challenge and do this work on the ground, and we will try and help them. Call us, you got our details, call us at ITV and call us at our IFRI lines, and we will follow up with you on how to uplift our communities. Well, Jazakallah khair. Remember us in the last few days of Ramadan. Remember all of the suffering people and the poor people of the world and the oppressed people of the world in this country and in the world till we meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ना तेरा खुदा कोई और है, ना मेरा खुदा कोई और है, ना तेरा खुदा कोई और है, ना मेरा खुदा कोई और है। ये जो रास्ते हैं जुदा जुदा, ये मामला कोई और है।